U.S. is funding terrorist organizations.
Perfect.
Specifically, you want to start with Taliban?
Yeah, I mean, it'll all go connect. So
Okay.
this is just gonna be a long response probably, but I want to talk about the buckets of money first, if that makes sense.
Yeah, please do.
So there's three big buckets of money, and then we focused on the third. So the first bucket of money it was $7 billion, and this was just basically the bank reserves the government of Afghanistan owned when it fell. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it was off-site, right? It was here. So $7 billion.
Mm-hmm.
So basically what the U.S. government has done with this $7 billion is they split it in half and said, we're going to give $3.5 billion to the victims of 9/11. If anyone from victims of 9/11 have gotten any of this $3.5 billion, which is earning insane interest monthly, please let me know, because I've yet to meet someone besides lawyers who made any money. So someone needs to be on this $3.5 billion that the U.S. siphoned off and figure out where it is, what's happening to it, and what people are doing with it. So we didn't even look into that piece. So the other $3.5 billion got taken and put in a Swiss bank account. This is so what we saw from. So in Libya, there was $200 billion that went missing. Okay, completely different situation. $200 billion of Gaddafi's money is like gone. So we get very concerned when something moves to Switzerland. So $3.5 billion moves to Switzerland, and now this is given to the Taliban. So the $3.5 billion belongs to the Taliban government. It's overseen by 4 individuals in Switzerland, a State Department officer, which is crazy. Like, I can see Department of Treasury, Commerce, like put a real money person on it. So a State Department officer, a Swiss diplomat, and then 2 Afghans. One Afghan kind of makes sense. He was basically the head of their finance department way back when, kind of when the Taliban first started taking over. He at least has a background. And then the last Taliban guy, it's very strange. I don't like to say rumors, but there might be some sort of nepotism that got them into that role. And the nepotism might involve family connected to our envoy. So we have an envoy to Afghanistan, Tom West. Lots of issues involving him and his sympathies towards the Taliban. Even after the fall of Afghanistan, he actually said, we will do anything at all costs to recognize the Taliban. So this is the broker we have, right? He'll do anything at all costs to recognize the Taliban? Are you kidding me, right? So this guy's already a problem. So these are the people, so it's just these 4 people overseeing this $3.5 billion. It's already earned like over 180 million in interest. And then, so I've asked around to see, has the Taliban taken any money from it? And then I get mixed responses. Some people say they haven't touched it. Some people say, well, we think they paid they owed the Uzbekistan all this money for it's kind of like electricity bills. And they did pay off Uzbekistan. Some say it came from that money, some say they don't. The interesting part in the Uzbekistan piece is the Taliban is paying them off and clearing those debts. Because if you remember, it was like around June of 2021, before the fall of Kabul, the U.S. military actually told the pilots, hey, in case of emergency, fly the planes to Uzbekistan. That's why all those planes flew in Uzbekistan. The U.S. military texted and told Afghan pilots to do that. So all these planes, as you can imagine, are still sitting in Uzbekistan, and the Taliban want the planes back, right? So they're trying to make nice with Uzbekistan to give the planes back. Like, Uzbekistan, don't give the planes back. So anyway, so that's that. So anyway, 3.5 million Taliban has access to, okay?
Billion.
Billion.
Can I ask, who's the State Department official overseeing this?
I don't know the name of the State Department person.
Do you think it's it's obviously a Taliban sympathizer, correct?
Most likely.
All this time, Biden started to tax the tips while willingly supporting the Taliban, who we sent our troops to fight and kill. And as a matter of fact, the money we send them is paying money to the family of those we killed, our servicemen killed. We don't even get that Our tax money is for our servicemen who've been killed in action. They get monthly. No, a weekly money, weekly, in the millions. Millions. And we don't have health care. Now tell me where that makes sense. Yeah.
So that's that. I didn't really look at that money because obviously the 3.5 billion is not where the money came from AQIM, right? So then there's a second pocket of money, which everyone tells us is the 40 million a week that comes on the airplane and comes into Afghanistan. The interesting part is I was like, well, is it 40 million a week, right? Because you got to ask these questions because, you know, there's not been a lot of honesty. So the plane comes in weekly. The amount of money on the plane weekly is 43 million to 87 million. Like, that's a big stretch if you tell me it has 40 million on the plane and the plane is arriving with $87 million. So let's just talk about the 40 million piece. So that 40 million piece gets taken from the plane. It's brought to like Afghanistan International Bank, which as you can imagine is making so much money off the exchange of this insane amount of money weekly. And then it's supposed to then go all to humanitarian aid, right? It's obviously not happening that way. 70% is getting siphoned off and going to Taliban-only causes, and the majority of that is to the Taliban military. So the way the Taliban's doing it, I mean, they're doing the most basic thing like bribes, but that doesn't get you to 70%. Then they've done this thing where every NGO that collects money from this pot of the 40 million has to have a Taliban representative basically like on their board. So Taliban has complete control as a board member of where the money goes. The last part, which is the smartest thing they did, is, as you can imagine, there's a lot of these long-standing NGOs in Afghanistan the State Department has relationships with. Well, Taliban just went in and gutted them completely and put all Taliban in them. So State Department will say, oh, we've had a 12-year relationship with them. We have this record. And they're not being honest and telling you, oh, well, the NGO we had a relationship with, none of them work there anymore, and it's all now just Taliban. So that's the key way they're siphoning this money. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that bucket, but one thing I want Americans to understand is in that bucket of the 40 million we send each week, we are paying basically welfare to the Taliban martyrs' families. So every Taliban member who died during the war with us, the U.S. government is paying them a stipend, the family. So our families of Americans who died there aren't getting squat, but we are paying Taliban families for basically dying while attacking us.
Whoa.
Yes, we are funding that.
This is just enraging.
And you know, I asked a couple of people that question straight out, like, do you not think this is not ethically correct? And actually one person gave me an answer of, well, it'll stop them from joining ISIS. I'm like, the Taliban guy's already dead. Like, they give you these bullshit excuses as to why they're funding, like, our enemies. So that's bucket two.
So here we are, working very hard. And we're being bamboozled. Our government is literally paying weekly money of our taxes to our enemy, the Taliban, who killed our own soldiers. Why were we there? You see, you got to understand something. 52 weeks between 40 to 87 million of our own tax dollars. We're suffering here. Our veterans are on the street. We are suffering, and yet we're giving our money out to the Taliban so they can pay their bills, so they can run their country. We're paying it. We're sleeping at the wheel. We're literally sleeping at the wheel. It's so important, people, to get Donald Trump elected. It's so important. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard. It's important that we change things. It's important we take part in our government.